My name's B. Moorhead. I'm the Executive Director of Texas Impact. We are a statewide interfaith organization. Our members include 17 Protestant denominations and other Jewish and Muslim communities as well. We respectfully oppose the bill in its current form. We completely agree with the author that faith communities belong as integral players in the child welfare system. We were supporters of Senator Ogden's child bill several years ago, and in fact, we are promoting it this month as our featured state program of the month. But we are concerned that House Bill 3864 could have a disruptive impact in the child welfare area. Current state and U.S. law and constitutional provisions provide substantial protection already, and they are carefully calibrated to maintain a balance between equal treatment, which we all know is the way that state agencies are able to contract with faith-based organizations, and separation of church and state, which is very important to many of our member organizations. Current legal provisions are sufficient and well understood by state agencies and also the nonprofit sector. Many of the denominations that belong to Texas Impact are not on the list of supporters for this bill, and that gives us concern about the stakeholder process, which we hope would be very broad given the sensitive nature of the legislation. We fear the bill could result in sectarian proselytization, which would be in contravention of state and federal law. We fear it could increase litigation. We're sure that's not the author's intent, and we think that exemplifies why legislation concerning faith-based services and programs is so important and should benefit from a robust stakeholder process that involves diverse faith traditions. And we would just say, at least from Texas Impact's position, faith-based doesn't equal Christian necessarily. So thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any questions? Representative Hughes.
I'll just leave my light on. No, thanks for your testimony,
Sure.
and we certainly appreciate the role you play. And we recognize, of course, this is America. Folks can believe what they want to believe, and there are concerns about the government being used to impose a certain worldview or certain values. And believe it or not, I'm with you. I share your concern about that. Whoever the majority is, the minority needs to be protected. Let me ask this though: is it the situations we talked about in Massachusetts, for example, when the same-sex marriage came along, and so Catholic charities had been there for decades and placed hundreds of children, they could no longer, in good conscience, operate because they refused to place children with same-sex couples. It's a sensitive topic, but it is what it is. Is that we don't want that to happen here, right? I mean, when we talk about faith-based groups participating, do we agree that a faith-based group should not be forced to place a child in a home that violates the faith-based group's closely held religious belief? I really am curious. I'm not trying to argue. Help walk me through this.
We would agree with CASA that is less likely to be the concern. Our concern is more that religious groups would be able to impose sectarian practices on children, or even on children who are from different faith traditions, or even from the same faith tradition, but using state funding. And we just feel like there needs to be a really careful working out. And honestly, we just feel that the current law is sufficient for the purposes that the bill's intended for. We totally agree that there need to be as many possible foster parents in the system.
And thank you for that. And that's helpful to make sure I understand. Do we agree that a faith-based group, whatever their faith is, should be allowed to participate in the system so far as they can? And if they cannot place a child with a certain type of home, they shouldn't be knocked out of the system completely, right? Catholic Charities in Boston, for example.
As long as it's not in contravention of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which we agree with CASA is a very fine piece of legislation that was passed in 1999 and has served this state very well.
Right. So we all have the concern about the rights of the children being protected. Obviously, it's about them. But to make sure I'm clear, we agree that a faith-based group should be allowed to participate. For example, if this were to happen in Texas, if the Catholic Charities doesn't want to place children, if, for example, in a same-sex couple home, for example, we agree that they should still be allowed to participate and place children in homes that are consistent with their Catholic teachings. We agree on that, right?
We agree that faith-based providers, already have all the legal protection they need to be able to place children, as my CASA colleague said, in the best interests of the child.
Okay. And should they be allowed to have policies where they place children in homes that are consistent with their closely held religious views? Those faith-based groups.
If they are receiving state funding, they should have policies that place the children in homes that are consistent with the state's policies. That's our probably final line on the subject, is that if they're receiving state funds, there are many different faith traditions that participate in child welfare and other social services as well. And that's why equal protection is so important, because they all may have different ideas about what would constitute. There could be a faith tradition that would specifically say they want a child to go in a family that I would not think was appropriate.
Right.
But they all get equally to participate in a system that's state funded. If they don't receive state funding, they are certainly free to do whatever they like. And I believe that there are a lot of them that do.
Right. So we agree that they should be allowed to participate, even using state funding, consistent with their closely held religious views, whatever those are, right?
To the extent that they comport with current law.
Current law meaning RFRA in
RFRA,
Texas.
yes, that's right.
And under current law, groups are allowed to do that. The Baptist groups, the Catholic groups, whatever the faith
Under
tradition
current law,
may
they
be.
are able to do to run their businesses how they see fit, but they're not able to use state funds to impose their religious beliefs on other people.
Oh no, we're just talking about.
So that would be
consistent with those
that would be
views.
the concern that we think should be most immediately addressed in this bill, would be what they're allowed to do to impose their religious beliefs on other people if they're receiving state funds. Again, if they are a private entity and not, then certainly that's within their prerogative.
I think I understand your position. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any other questions?
Thank
You
you.
so much for your testimony.